Welcome back to the channel, everyone. How you doing? I just want to say I appreciate you guys being here. Today is the day where we talk about the top 10 most disturbing books I want to read. According to Google, these are the top 10. I had to Google it, so we had to see what they are. So with this, I'm just going to read the synopsis and then kind of move on. I have no knowledge what any of these books are, except for 2, if I remember. And with this, I'm just gonna read off the synopsis, like I said, and there's just 10 of them. They're not ranked from spookiest to not spookiest. Now, the first one I read for the synopsis is actually kind of creepy. I immediately had like, oh, because it is disturbing. It's not scary, but these are just disturbing books I want to check out because I'm a weirdo. I like to read weird stuff that makes me feel uncomfortable once in a while, and it's fun. So let's get into it. So with each one of these, I've been working on new editing software, so hopefully I'm able to post pictures there or here, but we're gonna do the synopsis, or it's just gonna be a giant image across of it. I don't own any of these books, so we'll see how my editing skills perform. Anyways, the first book is Loletta, I think that's how you pronounce it. Now, I don't know anything about this book. It is written by someone who is from Russia, Vladimir Nabozak. I'm sorry if I mispronounced the last name. Let's get into the synopsis. Herbert, a scholar, aesthetic, and romantic, has fallen completely and utterly in love with Dolores Hayes, his landlady's gum-snapping, silky-skinned 12-year-old daughter, reluctantly agreeing to marry Mrs. Hayes just to be close to Loletta. Herbert suffers greatly in the pursuit of romance, but when Lo herself starts looking for attention elsewhere, he will carry her off on a desperate cross-country misadventure, all in the name of love. Hilarious, flamboyant, heartbreaking, and full of ingenious wordplay, Loletta is an immaculate, unforgettable masterpiece of obsession, delusion, and lust. So yeah, that book is going to be really weird to read. A man is obsessed with a 12-year-old. Can't wait for that. So yeah, like I said, just reading the synopsis of this book, I'm immediately like, this is going to be really weird. If this is the first one I have to check out, I'm already like, oh, this is already uncomfy. I'm uncomfy. But I also just want to give it a try because I want to read everything. I want to read books that will make me uncomfy because as a writer, I want to learn how to do this stuff for my readers, which sounds weird, but that's just what I do. So the next one on this list is The Wasp Factory by Ian Banks. Like I said, don't know anything about this book, so let's get into it. Frank, no ordinary 16-year-old, lives with his father outside a remote Scottish village. Their life is, to say the least, unconventional. Frank's mother abandoned them years ago. His older brother Eric is confined to a mental hospital, and his father measures out his eccentrics on an imperial scale. Frank has turned to strange acts of violence to vent his frustration. In the bizarre daily rituals, there is some solace, but when news come of Eric's escape from the hospital, Frank has to prepare the ground for his brother's inevitable return, an event that explodes the mystery of the past and changes Frank utterly. So with that being said, I don't really know. Apparently his brother just is in the mental hospital and he breaks out, and it sounds like they're like preparing for like battle, which is interesting. I wasn't really expecting that, but like I said, I don't know how I feel about this. The first one sounds way scarier than this one, so I guess we'll see how it works out, but it sounds like they're talking about past traumas, so that's going to be really disturbing most likely. I'm actually looking forward to reading it. I guess we'll see how it looks in the future. So the next one is called We Need to Talk About Kevin by Lionel Shriver. I think that's how you pronounce it. I don't know what this book's about, so let's check it out. Eva never really wanted to be a mother, and certainly not the mother of the unlovable boy who murdered 7 of his fellow high school students, a cafeteria worker, and a much adored teacher who tried to befriend him, all 2 days before his 16th birthday. Now, 2 years later, it is time for her to come to terms with marriage, career, family, parenthood, and Kevin's horrific rampage in a series of startling direct correspondence with her esteemed husband, Franklin. Uneasy with the sacrifices and social demotion of motherhood with the start, Eva fears that her alarming dislike for her own son may be responsible for driving him so nihistical off the rails. I hope I pronounced the last word. Neuristicals? I think that's how you pronounce it. I don't know. This book sounds actually interesting. It sounds like it's just like there's a lot of things going on with Kevin, and Kevin is a murderer. He killed a lot of people, and it sounds like his mom just doesn't want anything to do with Kevin, which is understandable. So I think this is going to be a really interesting one to get into, and I'm honestly looking forward to seeing what happens? Alright, so the next one is 1984 by George Orwell, and for a weird reason, like when I'm looking up, it doesn't have like what the book is about. It just has a forward about it. Like that's why I'm literally looking at my screen, so I don't know, but it's actually funny. I plan on reading 1984 in November, so I guess it just works out. All I know is it's like a futuristic world of like government control, which is gonna be dope. I'm looking forward to reading that. So other than that, I don't know anything else, so sorry about that. So the next one, I think this is the 5th one now. This one is actually one I don't own, but I own one of the author's books. I actually been wanting to read him for a while. He actually, one of his books I watched as a movie years ago, and it's actually one of my favorite movies, which I'm really surprised I actually like that movie, especially because I was really young. It is Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy. I never read anything from him. All I know is a lot of people don't like that he doesn't do dialogue. Like there's no way you know if there's dialogue, which is fine. I'm whatever. I like to read something different, but with this, no idea what Blood Meridian's about. There's a guy on YouTube who I watch once in a while named Wendigoon, and he has like a 6-hour-long video about Blood Meridian. And I actually want to listen to that video well after I'm done with this book. Let's get into the synopsis. Blood Meridian is an epic novel of the violence and depravity that attended America's westward expansion, brilliantly subverting the conventions of the Western novel and the mythology of the Wild West. Based on historical events that took place on the Texas-Mexico border in the 1850s, it traces the fortunes of the kid, a 14-year-old Tennessean who stumbles into a nightmarish world where Indians are being murdered and the market for their scalps is thriving. That sounds uncomfortable, but I was told that this book is haunting, and I'm actually looking forward to it. A lot of these books, I'm trying to push to read them earlier instead of being like kicking them down the road. I'm trying to, in general, when it comes to my reading experience, I'm trying to read just more different genres, more books. Like I'm surrounded by books. I have probably about 400 books, and I'm close to reading almost all of them. And my goal is to read all the ones I own currently. And I actually own a lot of these. And I want to read these. I want to read a lot more of these books before I just go out and, buy more. That's the goal. And I've been doing pretty good at that. I've been restricting myself with buying books. I buy once in a while. I buy like 2 or 3. And that's fine. But with Blood Meridian, I really want to read it. I'm actually excited. I think I'm going to make a goal list for 2025 in January. Probably the first video of my January videos of my goals of what books to read or just what I want to do the new year. So we will do that and go from there. I'm pretty excited. But Blood Meridian sounds horrifying. But to me, I like historical accurate books. A lot of people really glaze over historical accuracy. To me, I want to learn the truth about a lot of the historical things. I'm a guy that loves historical stuff, especially when it's accurate. So the next book is House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielwisk. I think that's how you pronounce it. I'm sorry if I pronounced the last name wrong. Let's get into the synopsis before I talk about it. A young family moves into a small home on Ash Tree Lane, where they discover something is terribly wrong. Their house is bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. Of course, neither Pulitzer Prize-winning photojournalist Will Davidson or his companion Karen Green was prepared to face the consequences of that impossibility until the day their 2 little children wandered off and their voices eerily began to return another story. A creature darkness of an ever-growing abyss behind a closet door, and of that unholy growl which soon enough would tear through their walls and consume all their dreams. That sounds freaking creepy. I love it. I love that idea. So I want to read it. I don't know anything else about it, and we're gonna leave it to that. So the next one on this one is called Haunted by Chuck Valadanuk. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Sorry in advance. Haunted is a novel made up of stories, 23 of the most horrifying, hilarious, mind-blowing, stomach-churning tales you'll ever encounter. Okay, can't wait to check that one out. On to the next one. The next one on this is The Girl Next Door by Jack Ketchum. Now, I hear a lot of things about Jack Ketchum, so I'm not surprised that his books are pretty disturbing, and honestly, I'm looking forward to seeing what disturbing thing is. And I'm pretty sure this is like his most disturbing book. Every single time I seen anyone talk about Jack Ketchum, all of his books are very disturbing, and I'm all for it. So let's get into the synopsis of this one, and then I'll give you a little bit of my thoughts. Suburbia, shady, tree-lined streets, well-tended lawns, and cozy homes. A nice, quiet place to grow up, unless you are teenage Meg or her crippled sister, Susan. On a dead-end street in the dark, damp basement of the Chandler house, Meg and Susan are left captive to the savage whims and rages of a distant aunt who is rapidly descending into madness. It is the madness that infects all three of her sons and finally the entire neighborhood. Only one troubled boy stands hesitantly between Meg and Susan and their cruel, torturous deaths. A boy with a very adult decision to make. Yeah, that book sounds very disturbing. I don't know how I feel about it. It sounds like it's gonna be very uncomfy. It's gonna make me uncomfy. And we're gonna see what happens after that. Like I said, I read Flowers in the Attic earlier this year, and that book was actually pretty uncomfy too, reading. I thought a family dynamic where you make like family members like hate each other and stuff like that always makes me feel uncomfortable. So I like that element, and I haven't like watched any reviews about any of these books. So this is going to be very interesting digging into them, especially this book. Now, when I first saw this book, I thought it was The House on the Left or something like that. I think that's what it's called. It's with Jennifer Lawrence. It's a movie. I can't think of it at all other than that. So anyways, we're going to go into the next one. The next one on the list is The Handmaid's Tales by Margaret Atwood. I think this is the newest one of the top 10 most disturbing. And every time I would see this, I always sit there and think, like, oh, maybe I'll read it. But then I'm like, I don't know. It just doesn't sound interesting. But yet again, I never actually like read the synopsis. But it's like a show now on Hulu, I think. So I thought about reading this book and then I'll go check out the show. Anyways. Let's get into the synopsis first. Offred is a handmaid in the Republic of Gilead. She may leave the home of the commander and his wife once a day to walk to food markets, whose signs are now pictures instead of words because women are no longer allowed to read. She must lie on her back once a month and pray that the commander makes her pregnant. Because in an age of declined births, Offred and the other handmaids are valued only if their ovaries viable. Offred can remember the years before when she lived and made love with her husband. Luke played with and protected her daughter, when she had a job, money of her own, and access to knowledge, but all that is gone now. Well, that does sound very uncomfortable, especially because like I'm not a woman, so reading that I was like, ooh, this is already a little creepy. But this one really cranks it up, especially if I was a woman reading this, I would be a lot more uncomfortable. And I am. The idea, like my biggest thing is I'm questioning is, how did this happen? How did it get to this point where she is a handmaid to like the commander? What happened to her husband and her daughter? What happened to her working? What happened to all this? And I really am interested to see where this goes, how this book dives deeper into this, and especially because it's highly rated, so I would love to just see. And it's just disturbing that she has to like get pregnant from this commander, which is just crazy. I would like to just read it and figure it out. That's the beauty about books. You read it and then you find the answers. Works really good. All right, last one. I heard this one a lot. I heard stories about this one, and I can't wait to read this one to you guys. All right, so this one is called I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream by Harlan Ellison. And this is the same thing where it's just a bunch of stories. It says there's 7 stories, but it doesn't tell you what like the synopsis about any of them. It just tells you that it dates from 1958 to 1967, and that's it. But it doesn't tell you any more about it, so I'm sorry everyone, but some books just don't have synopsis, and that kind of upsets all of us here. If you guys made it to the end of the video, what do you guys think about these top 10 disturbing books I want to read? Do you think this is going to be a fun little video? Do you guys think it's going to be fun to watch these videos and just hear what I say about these things, or what do you guys think about it? Have you guys read any of these disturbing books? Let me know down below. I would love to hear that, because honestly, I just want to see what you guys would think as well. And with these disturbing videos, well, these disturbing books, I would like to just venture out into the world. I like reading horror. It's one of my favorite genres to read. I like reading just in general. So when I get to read books that make me feel uncomfy sometimes, I'm all for it. But of course, make sure you guys stay safe, stay humble, and tell someone you love them. I'll see you guys in the next video. Stay weird.